recording. And let's quickly, so basically, I asked you guys a couple of weeks ago to watch this presentation called A Celebration of Natural Hair. And as a reminder, this class is not about the subjects that we are reading or the presentations, that we're watching. But what we are doing is we're looking at these real life presentations, these real life conversations that are happening in the real world. And we're seeing how our writing in English 1101 parallels that, because they're, in class we're writing 5-paragraph essays about these, whatever topics they are. But I want you guys to see that these essays that are being assigned to you in 1101, they're just tools for you to become a better speaker and communicator and writer in the real world. Cool? So this is just the latest video I asked you guys to listen to, and I asked you guys to watch, and I asked you guys to examine the transcripts. So we're going to go through the transcripts today, and after we do that, I will post the recording of this session, and I'm going to open the midterm exam. The midterm exam is 10 questions, and it's very similar to the quizzes you guys have taken in the last couple of weeks, except that it's on the transcripts of this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm going to ask you guys questions. This part of the presentation, what is she doing? What is this woman, Cheyenne Cochran, what is she doing here in this first paragraph? Don't tell me what she's saying, tell me what she's doing. What do we do at the beginning of a presentation? Someone's got to tell me. What do we do at the beginning of an essay? What's the first thing you write? What's the first part of your essay called?
She's introducing herself.
Okay, she introduces herself. Right, T. We start with a hook, right? We start with a way to engage the reader when you guys are writing your essays. So we talked about, several weeks ago, we talked about different strategies for writing a hook. So what strategy is she using here to write her hook? Very good, Natalia. Do you guys see Natalia's answer in the chat? Right, T, you're right. It's definitely giving background information, but T, is it giving background information about her topic, or is it giving her background information about herself? Herself, very good. So we can call that a personal story, right? We talked about all different sorts of strategies we can use for writing a hook. You can use an anecdote, you can use a quotation, you can use a question, you can use contrasting position, you can use a combination of those things. And if you want to look at examples, go back to the parts of an essay folder and look at the sample essays there when we talked about hook. But here she's talking about herself. I am from Southside Chicago. When I was in 7th grade, I had a friend named Jenny. She lived on the southwest side. Jenny was white, and if you know anything about Chicago, you know how Chicago is, where different demographics live. Jenny was my friend. We would hang out on schools. I was in her living room. Her sister said something. So it's a personal story. She's talking about herself. What would you guys say is the main idea of this presentation? So we can go down, and she's continuing her story. She says, Rosie is the name of her friend's sister, and the little girl Rosie said, "Can I ask you a question?" And she asked her a question, "Are you black?" The room froze, silence. Jenny and Rosie's mom was not too far away. All this stuff happened. She's continuing her story, but then what happens at the end of a hook? What are we supposed to do after the hook? Think about your essays. What comes after the hook? Anybody? The thesis statement. Very good, T. The thesis statement comes. So the thesis statement is the main idea of the entire presentation of your paper. So what would you guys, I want you guys to take a minute and look here after her story ends. Tell me where her story ends and tell me what her thesis statement is. Where does her story end? The room froze. Silence. Their mom was not too far away. She was in the kitchen and she overheard the conversation and she was mortified. She said, Rosie, you can't ask people questions like that. And Jenny was my friend, and I know she was really embarrassed. Is the story still continuing? Yes or no? Is this part of the story?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, the story is continuing. Good. I felt kind of bad for her, but actually I was not offended. I figured it wasn't Rosie's fault. Is this still part of the story? Is this something that was still happening on this day in the living room?
Yes.
Very good. She wasn't 100% sure what a Black person looked like. That's fair. But what was more surprising to me, in all of this time I had spent with Jenny and Rosie's family, hanging out with them, it was not until Rosie put her hands on my hair that she thought to ask me if I was Black. The story is still continuing.
Correct.
But look at these next couple of lines. It's slowly converting from this happened, that happened, Jenny did this, I said this, and it's converting to like more of what? What do you think the next few lines are converting into or transforming into?
What her topic is going to be about. She's going to
Exactly.
discuss, right.
Very good. Thank you. I think that is Latoya talking. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you can see that like as this story is happening, she says this was the first time I would realize how big of a role the texture of my hair played in confirming my ethnicity, but also that it would play a key role in how I'm viewed by others in society. So she's telling this story. This happened, that happened, next, then this happened, that happened. And then she has this huge revelation to herself. And because we've already read all the transcripts, we know that this entire essay is going to be about realizing that the texture of her hair plays a role in confirming her ethnicity, and it also plays a role in how she's viewed by others in society. Are you guys with me? Yes or no? Can I continue? Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we all see so in the first 2 minutes of this presentation, we know what she's done. She's hooked us. She's told us a story, and she's told us what this presentation is going to be about. But then all of a sudden here, she jumps to people who lived 100 or 1200, or 100 years ago. She's now talking about the early 1900s. Why is she doing this? What is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of this whole paragraph about Garrett A. Morgan and Madam C.J. Walker, who lived in the early 1900s? Why is she putting this information here? What's the reason? Think about this like an essay. Why would you go back 100 years and put some information from back then? That's okay, Natalia. So basically, Natalia, we're talking about how Cheyenne Cochran tells a very, a personal story, and then she tells us what the main idea of this presentation is going to be, which I'm highlighting in pink right now. But then she jumps to talking about two people who worked in the beauty, who basically created the beauty industry for Black hair care in the early 1900s. Why is she doing that? What is the purpose?
I feel like she's putting these people in there to show why people wanted to straighten their hair instead of keeping it natural.
Mm-hmm. You said wanted to. Why did you say wanted instead of want, Latoya?
Um,
What is the difference between want and wanted?
um,
Give me the easiest answer. The easiest answer. It's a simple question. Don't make it more difficult. Because wanted means in the past, right?
right, right,
She's
right,
giving us a history. She's
right.
telling us the historical context for what she's going to talk about. So T, you're right. You said history of the inventor. So she wants to, in our minds, she's trying to create for us the context, the background, so that we understand where her ideas are coming from. Why is this an issue now? Like, why is this something that people are talking about? She's giving us an understanding of what happened in the past so that we can understand the present. It's just like I hope all of you guys are following the news of what's happening in Ukraine and how people are talking about how, you know, all these things have happened in the past couple of years. Like, you know, Russia has been providing, chemical weapons for Syria to use on civilians, and the world has not punished Syria for that. Russia invaded Crimea many years ago and annexed it. Nobody did anything about that. Russia has been kind of pushing things. And the reason that we need to know that is that this is similar to what happened in World War II. World War II didn't just like start all of a sudden on one day. We need to understand the background of the historical context. Like, what are all these things that happened for many, many years all over the world before World War II that kind of made World War II officially World War II? It's the same thing. Like, if you look at the last few years of what Russia has been doing and been allowed to do, you'll see that, oh my gosh, what's happening right now in Ukraine is actually much bigger than just Ukraine. So I'm giving you guys like a parallel. So she's giving us a historical background so we can understand the issue of today. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. Okay, thank you, T. All right, look at this next paragraph. She says over the years. So let's look up, I'm gonna go back to this paragraph where she talks about Garrett A. Morgan and Madam C.J. Walker in the early 1900s. Then in the next, and she's done, then she finishes talking about them. And then she says, over the years, we grew accustomed to this idea that straighter and longer hair meant better and more beautiful. Why is she saying over the years? What is the purpose? What is the purpose as a writer, as a presenter? What is the reason that she's saying these words over the years? Okay, let's look at the previous paragraph. Okay, thank you, T. She's talking about the early 1900s. And then look at the next paragraph. So what did we do? She's talking about right now. Basically, even though she's using past tense, did and went, she's talking about current times. So why is she saying over the years? The words we choose when we write are very important. Remember, as the writer, it is your job to hold the reader's hand and take the reader from your idea to your next idea to your next idea. It's your job as the writer to do that. She's the writer. What is she doing when she says over the years? Why is she using those words? T. Kim, you're saying she wants to contrast? Contrast what? Contrast means difference. So, okay, I'm going to go back and say that again. She talks about the early 1900s, correct? You guys see that? Let's skip this part and let's go here. Then she's talking about current times, women going to the salon every 6 to 8 weeks, subjecting scalps to harsh straightening chemicals, sometimes as early as age 8 or 10, frying hair at 450 degrees, maintaining a straight look, preventing roots from breathing, adopting these practices in our communities. So here it was the early 1900s. Very good, T. It gives us an order, but it also serves as a bridge. This is a transition to show us that she's going to move from the past 100 years ago to the present. It's serving as a bridge to say that, okay, that happened, but because of that, look at what we do now. Does that make sense? She's holding the reader's hand and she's saying, okay, reader, okay, listener, now I'm going to tell you about the effect of this. What did this industry from the early 1900s, how has it affected us over the years? What are we doing now? Does that make sense? Yes or no?
Yes.
See, Latoya, the purpose of this is that I want you guys to realize that as the writer, it's your job to make sure the reader is coming along with you. We cannot assume that the reader knows what's happening in our head. The reader doesn't know what's happening in our head.
Right.
It's our job as the writer to hold the reader's hand and say, okay, now I'm going here, now I'm going here, now I'm going here. These are called transitions.
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So where would you guys, I'm going to give you guys a minute to scroll through this on your own. She gives examples. I hope you watch the presentation. She shows examples of women, of Black women who do straighten their hair. And then she shows an example of a Black woman who wears her hair naturally and has been able to find success.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about, different leaders and role models in the African American community. She talks about the natural hair movement that's sweeping the country, and she's kind of saying that she wants to share her journey openly. So let's try to see, where does she talk about sharing her journey opening? She says, like a good millennial, I documented it on social media. Let me see if I can find this. Hold on. Yeah, here she says, by sharing this journey openly, I learned that I was not the only woman going through this. And in fact, there were thousands and thousands of other women who are wanting to do the same thing. So she talks about herself. She talks about, her own experience. Where would you guys say is her conclusion? Where do you think her conclusion begins? How does she start her conclusion? Anybody?
Um.
Where is she letting you know that, okay, I'm done?
I leave you with this.
I would agree with you, Latoya. Very good. I leave you with this. And then she says, she gives advice to the audience. And then she says, and finally, you know, her last point here, and it's over. But again, what I'm looking for from you guys is I want you guys to be able to um, I want you guys to be able to see the parallels between a real life presentation and the types of and the structure that you guys are using in your own essays that you're writing in 1101. Do you have any questions? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.